Hey everybody, welcome back to Retro Modding News. Now I'm recording this on April Fool's Day, but I'm going to try to dodge some of the joke news articles and only give you guys the real news stories this week. First up this week, we have a nice announcement from Pixel Effects talking about a couple of firmware updates they have to the N64 digital and the PSOne digital. It looks like both the PSOne and the N64 digital are going to be getting motion adaptive deinterlacing coming soon. It's nice to finally see this feature both in the N64 and the PSOne digital. I think the only other devices that do this motion adaptive deinterlacing are the RetroTink 5X Pro, and I think maybe the gbaHD. They said that the N64 digital is supposed to have that new firmware by the end of the month, so hopefully we'll all be able to use that feature soon. Next, we have this update from Borti talking about a new version of his NES-IO project. If you didn't know, the original version of the NES-IO, I think actually the Real Phoenix is selling them right now. Oh no, they're out of stock, but the original version of the NES-IO is sort of a replacement board for the board in the NES that has both the RF output as well as the composite video and also where the voltage regulator lives. Actually, it looks like the Real Phoenix is a different version than Borti's version, but I think they're based on the same project. Anyways, I'm just going to use the Real Phoenix's version just for a comparison. It actually takes the output from the NES RGB board on the left side over here and then splits that out to different ports. So you've got your composite video over here, and actually in this picture it has a Sega Genesis style output up here, as well as I think maybe S video here. That's based off of version 1 of the NES-IO. I can't really glean anything from this picture that Borti uploaded, other than maybe this looks like a multi-out in the top here. I believe the Real Phoenix has a version that has a multi-out as well. But there's two other boards up here too. Very interesting. Borti is working on this project with MemCloud, who is working on the gbaHD shield. I'm excited to hear more details about what's going to be in this version too. Next, we have an interesting MiSTer update. It sounds like there are a bunch of MiSTer cores that are getting S video and composite video output. So it looks like there's a couple of Atari systems, the Master System, GameGear, the Sega Genesis, the Sega CD, NES, Super Nintendo, Neo Geo, TurboGrafx, and the PSOne. It sounds like the best way to get that output out of the MiSTer right now is to use an HDMI to VGA adapter and then kind of split the signals out from there. But this is very interesting for someone who wants to maybe hook up a MiSTer to an older TV that only accepts either S video or composite video. Next, we have this small update from Todd Gill. It looks like he got a gbaHD AIO board from Leon. Sounds like he wants to use it to be able to build a case for it. I think there's something interesting about this gbaHD AIO build. As much as I like the other gbaHDs and the GBA consolizer, it seems like this would be a much better approach to consolizing a Game Boy. With a gbaHD build, especially like a Game Boy SP, you're removing a lot of components anyways, so not a lot, but a couple of components. So you might as well just go through the effort of removing those two chips and soldering it onto this all new PCB. You're probably going to end up with a better result than using 20-year-old electronics. The only real thing missing from the gbaHD AIO is a nice looking case, and Todd Gill is one of the two people that I know of that would make a nice looking case for the gbaHD. I'm excited to see what he comes up with. Let me know in the comments if you want me to tackle one of these gbaHD AIO builds. Next, we have an interesting update from Castlemania. It looks like they're actually going to be selling Voltar's NES expansion audio board. If you didn't know, this expansion audio mod kind of adds back some additional audio channels to the NES. In the Japanese versions of the NES, I believe they had the circuits for the expansion audio, but the North American ones, I believe they did not. I think there's only a couple of games that support the expansion audio, but the ones that do, they sound really awesome. I think Castlemania supports it, the game Castlemania, not the company. And the expansion audio version of the Castlemania soundtrack is really awesome. Anyways, if you're interested in buying one of these, it looks like Castlemania are going to be selling them. Next, we have an interesting beta kit from Benn. It looks like he's developed a version of his GameGear IPS screen that works with VA4 and 5 GameGears. Now, be warned, I think this is still in development and these are currently beta kits. The install on these VA4 and 5 kits is more difficult than the standard, I think it's the 0 and 1 kits. It looks like there's a lot more wires that you need to solder in order to get the kit to work. You can read more information about this specific version. It looks like the VA4 and VA5 are worse versions of the hardware compared to the VA0 and 1, but it still might be cool if you've got one of those motherboards lying around and you want to try to upgrade it to a IPS screen. Next, we have an old story that I just recently heard about from Retro Game Restore. This is an injection molded shell for you to make a DS Lite into a Game Boy macro. It also comes with a speaker and a resistor that you're going to need to actually do the whole mod. So if you buy this shell, you're actually buying all the parts that you need to make one of these if you have a DS Lite. I actually do do have a really gross looking DS Lite, so let me know if you want me to make a video about how to make a Game Boy macro out of a DS Lite. Side note, DS Lites are kind of inexpensive on eBay, so an interesting way to make a cool looking Game Boy that might actually be cheaper than a real Game Boy. Next we have this interesting post from Reventlow. He's got this like analog pocket grip that he's been working on, and this is just the latest version of it. It's a pretty cool idea. It has these little nylon screws that kind of screw into the back of the, I don't think they actually screw into the pocket, but there's like screw holes already there, and these nylon screws just kind of hold the grip in place. So it kind of gives you a wider grip on the pocket for better ergonomics. I've never really been a fan of this vertical style Game Boy situation. I've always liked the wider Game Boy Advance style. Now that I think about it, maybe Reventlow should make a grip like this for the Game Boy Color. Anyways, if you're interested in printing your own, there's a work in progress version on Printables. Printables, if you didn't know, actually is the updated version of the Prusa printers sort of repository system that they made where you can upload 3D printing files. You can find Reventlow's models on Printables. Next we have another screenshot from 8-Bit Mods for their newest MemCard Pro. Now this time I think the screen is in the correct orientation, however we still can't really tell exactly what console this MemCard Pro is for. However, then Greg Collins from LaserBear showed off this case rendering. I think he's going to be handling the case for this MemCard Pro, or at least the model for it. And I do want to say, even though it's really long and kind of thick at the end here, it still kind of gives me GameCube vibes. Now a couple of people have pointed out that there is a USB port on the front here. I think Rain says that it's for powering external devices. Now to me that's kind of random, but it makes me think that maybe this USB port is like power only. So if you have some kind of a wireless controller, you can charge it from the memory card. That kind of makes sense because let's say you are using a GameCube and maybe you do have some kind of a wireless controller. You wouldn't need an external power brick to charge your controller. You could just plug it into the memory card here. Anyways, that's just speculation. I'm not really sure, and they haven't really hinted about what that's for, but I'm kind of excited to see more details about this new MemCard Pro. Last but not least, we have this tweet from Robert Neumann showing off this interesting drive emulator. Now, if you look at the photo here, whatever he's built here is connected to a PSOne, like the slim PS1s, and those currently are compatible with the X-Station ODE. So it's really interesting to see an ODE working for the PS1 here. And if we keep reading here, there's a lot of more technical words that I don't really understand. Something about a read-solemn uncoded, scrambled, and 8 to 14 expanded CD bit stream in real time, enabling the ODE to be compatible with any CD system. So like I said, I really don't know what a lot of that means, but I think I understand it to mean that it can kind of stream data from a disk directly to the drive of a console. Almost like you're bypassing the laser of the disk drive and sort of feeding those bits directly to the rest of the drive hardware. So this is not necessarily an entire replacement for a specific disk drive. This is kind of replacing the laser aspect of how you're going to read that data from a disk. In theory, we should be able to bring this ODE to almost any console that has a disk. It's currently just a research project. I'm not sure if we're going to see this become a product at all, but this project opens a whole new door into different ways that we can kind of create ODEs in sort of a more generic form so that we can apply the same kind of back-end systems to more than just a specific console. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this ODE in the comments, and maybe what console that you'd like to see this ODE applied to. That's it for this week. If you'd like to submit a news story to me, follow me on Twitter or join the Discord. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.